Hi, this is Sheena Carroll. I'm the content coordinator for the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and I am the host of the Apprentice Advantage.
And I am Lelia Broughton. I am your co host, and I am the Director of Workforce Innovation for 40 by 80, which is the nonprofit arm of the Tech Council. So I'm really excited today because we're talking about apprenticeship and we're focusing more on Apprenti PGH and why we brought Apprenti PGH to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's already been almost 5 years.
5 years seems like a long time.
Yeah, and I'm curious, how much it has changed and developed because I wasn't here for all of it. But the things I've seen in the past couple of years have been very exciting.
Yeah, I know that when I started working for this program, I really was excited about the change we were making in Pittsburgh, the change and just the mindset of a lot of our employers when it comes to hiring an apprentice or doing these non-traditional routes whenever they take hiring into consideration.
Absolutely, and also considering how many employers we've gotten in the past few years, as well as growing that pool of interested folks.
Let's just get into it. Today, I am excited because we're interviewing someone who played a really big role in bringing Apprenti PGH into play. Today, we're going to be interviewing Marie Peloni. She is the Senior Director of Talent and Workforce Development Initiatives for the Pittsburgh Technology Council. Thank you, Marie, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This is a fun story to tell.
Yes. Okay, so tell us all about it. I'm really excited. Give us the why. Why Pittsburgh? Why Apprenti? Why apprenticeship?
So at the time when we started to hear about Apprenti and look into Apprenti, we had some great programming here that was a good foundation for all of this. We were doing hiring. We were helping our members hire. We were helping our members hire from multiple pathways. We had really great K-12 programs that were feeding these students through traditional and non-traditional pathways. But we were missing this really important piece. And that was tapping into untapped talent that was across the region and giving them an opportunity in a non-traditional setting to have a career in tech, to have that economic mobility, to really change systemically how employers were looking to hire. We started to think about it, and anytime we approach anything, or at least our team approaches anything, we're really going to do a lot of research. We're going to do a lot of listening. It started with listening sessions really around the death of George Floyd. We're not doing enough. Yes, we have these programs. Yes, we're making an impact, but it's not enough. So it started there. Audrey Russo, our president CEO, who traveled the region and did some really amazing listening sessions along with the president of our board, Jason Wolf. And they learned a lot. And they came back to us on the team and saying, okay, we need to do better. And so then we started to really lean a little more into what is this tech apprenticeship program? We talked to Apprenti National. I actually remember I was on vacation and I said, I'm not missing this call. I was actually on the beach with my family and I jumped on the call. I had to travel way up towards the trees to get service. And I was so excited. There was so much in my belly that made sense. Yes, we're tapping in untapped talent. Yes, we're providing training providers with these candidates to have a job first. Yes, this makes sense. Yes, they're going to get jumps in salary. There was a lot of yeses, but we didn't know enough, right? Then we started to talk to other tech councils across the country, and not even tech councils, other associations, because some of them were conferences like our Allegheny conference, who were doing this program. Very different models in all of them. That was interesting to hear how they were implementing the program. But the theme that kept resonating over and over again was this candidate pool. What this candidate pool looked like, the talent, the grit, the excitement, the possibilities of this candidate pool. And so that's when we all came together as a staff and we're like, this is going to be really hard, but let's do it. So then we still had to pause because I still did not. So then we started larger listening sessions with some really key groups. First, community organizations, Hill CDC, My Brother's Keeper, Second Chance, Urban League. Tell me, as this little white girl, everything I do not know about tapping into untapped talent that haven't had these opportunities. What don't I know? And I literally we brought them here to the Tech Council, and I filled a whiteboard front and back with everything that I didn't know. Things with how to approach, how to talk about it, how to gain trust, all the way up through childcare, transportation, all the barriers that we didn't know. did that. We talked to employers. Employers, we're going to need you for this. What roles would you be open to even looking at for this? Because we can have so many different roles, right? What roles? Software engineering? Okay. Cybersecurity? Okay. What are you going to need from us? Are you really going to be open to this? This is a totally different way to thinking. So then that, and I'll talk about this later, but that was all part of the education piece on how we to talk to employers. We talked to training providers. Training providers, are you up for this? Right now, there's a different model. You are putting people through a program, awesome. Then you're trying to find them jobs. Are you on board to do this with us? What is this going to look like? So we talked to those 3 key groups. And then I've never run an apprenticeship program. I didn't know what that looked like. So we had to talk to Partner for Workland or Workforce Development Boards. We had to talk to Catalyst Connection, who ran apprenticeships, not in this space, but teach me about apprenticeships. So there was, in the origin of it, a lot of learning and whiteboarding and listening.
Okay, so you brought up the concept of like the Pittsburgh talent pool. Could you give me some more history on like how Apprenti PGH developed that pool and what resources you tapped for it?
Yeah. And that's a great question because going into this, again, always talking about what we didn't know, we thought the candidate pool was going to be the hardest thing to curate and that the employers were going to be a piece of cake. We very much learned the opposite of that is true, but it took us a while. So getting into the candidate pool, we started to, based on the advice that we've received, meet them where they are, right? I held a informational session in the Mon Valley at the library. I've always been a very big fan of libraries. It's where the community comes. They trust the libraries, right? We ordered some food. We went to the Mon Valley, into the Mon Valley Library, and we had probably 50 people show up from all different parts of the community, all different educational backgrounds, all different interests. And it was fantastic. And not only did I stand up there and just tell them the program, which they thought was way too good to be true, but then I even put up the test. There's a test that you have to take, that you have 3 chances to pass to be able to become part of the candidate pool for Apprenti. And I knew that was going to be scary. That was going to be a barrier. I let them know about the level of math. It would have been 10th grade level of math. And I actually pulled up the questions and we started to do the questions together because I'm like, this is how easy it can be to demystify that. So that was a first start. And then I did the same thing at the Hill CDC, went to the Hill District and did the same thing. Had people come from the Mon Valley to the Hill CDC to even learn more. So it showed that, okay, there's interest in this. And then the final one that I did was here at the Tech Council. And we actually had some people who had done Apprenti in DC and brought their cousins with them, 2 of their cousins, and said, come, you have to learn about that. So it started to build. That's how we tapped and started with a candidate pool.
That's awesome. And no, very smart to just go to the source, but also sounds like word of mouth also spread pretty quickly as well.
Very quick.
One of my favorite stories that I believe Maria tells all the time is how we had a candidate come in and then he went through the program, he got a job, then he went and told his dad about the program, and then the dad signed up for Apprenti and got a job with us as well. I'm like, it's always like those stories like that kind of warm my heart. But you started to mention advice and advice that you got from a lot of the community partners. I know we recently had a community partner lunch and Maddie Woods from the Urban League, she was there. And you were like, man, you shared a wealth of knowledge, right? So what are like 1 or 2 key things she shared with you?
So she really gave it to me straight, and I wanted that. I was so hungry for that. And she said to me, you're going to come in to a community that has had so many promises made to them, and you're going to make more promises. And they don't want to hear them. They want to see outcomes. They want to see really, where is this going to take me? And are you sure this is going to happen? Marie, you have got to gain their trust, and you have got to give it straight. Do not sugarcoat it. Don't go in there just all bubbly. I have another opportunity for you. And I needed to hear that because I am someone who there's a problem. I'm going to come up with answers. I'm going to offer solutions. And that's all I'm going to need to do. And she said that happens all the time, every day, especially down here in Allegheny County. They're going to offer solutions. So she told me that you need to genuinely gain their trust and have real outcomes here. And then she said, there are things you're not thinking about. And that is where she said, what are you going to do for childcare? What are you going to do for a single mother who is so smart and so talented? What are you going to do? What are you going to do whenever they have to cross 2 bridges to get to that training provider. They're not going to go. What are you going to do? And you need to have answers when they ask.
Yeah.
What partnerships are you going to form with the Port Authority? What are you going to do? And she's like, I can help with that, which was great about Miss Maddie.
Yeah.
I can help if you're interested. And then we had series of conversations after that too.
Cool.
Those facets are what really excited me about Apprenti. And it's one of the things where in my off time, like a lot of times when I'm talking to folks who are like looking into different lines of work and I suggest, oh, hey, I know this really cool program. They'll be like, I have a kid or I don't have a car. And knowing the fact that like Apprenti PGH has like amenities like that it always gets people really excited whenever I share that. Actually, we have answers that.
We would have failed had we not had those in place to start.
Yeah.
We would have lost trust. We would have just been another program. But because we did those listening sessions, we had them in place ahead of time, which was good.
Yeah. I know we are doing a lot of great things now with Apprenti. We're fully up and running. We have got 47 apprentices hired year to date, which is really great. But what are some of the challenges that you face from the beginning to get us to the point where we are today?
So many challenges. So I mentioned that I didn't know anything about apprenticeship, right? So there's an entire process, both at the state level and the federal level in Pennsylvania, to get this apprenticeship certified. We had to do that to get funding. So the two biggest challenges right away were, how are we going to fund this? How are we going to get these certified? We had to try and go in front of the board, the state board, and get an apprenticeship certified for software engineers, cybersecurity, IT analysts, beside plumbers, beside electricians, beside masons. They had no idea what we were talking about. And that board was made up of plumbers, electricians. Then one of the biggest challenges was navigating that application process, being able to present to the board, being told no over and over again.
Like tech apprenticeship.
Well, this isn't going to work. And where's your safety protocol? And it was a total mind shift from that level. And then another mind shift was the employers. These employers were not, great, sign us up. You're going to get us diverse workers, different ways of thinking, untapped talent, perfect. They were not ready for an apprenticeship. What does that look like in tech? That is a point of really social justice. We had to go in there and educate these employers on being open to untapped talent, non-traditional pathways, seeing them as actual quality talent that could bring so much to their company, really at a discounted price, if you want to get into it as far as on their side of things, but bring a totally different perspective, bring social skills that they did not have potentially in others. A lot of our candidates come from the gig economy. They work in customer service. They're solving problems all day long. They can come and join a team. They can lead a team. So the two biggest barriers there were systemic change among the employers, getting them certified in front of a board that was not used to it, and then funding. We're a nonprofit, and we did not want a dime to come out of the candidate's pocket.
Mm-hmm.
We had to pay for training at these training providers, especially when we first started it. Where were we going to go for funding? We had to get them certified in order to get that funding from the state and federal agencies. But then we had to go and talk about something that was totally new to our local foundations and talk to philanthropy about, think about this differently, and we promise we're going to have outcomes, and we're going to be able to measure that success. So I think those were our biggest barriers.
Right. And we launched the program in the middle of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So what were challenges you faced around that?
Yes. How were we going to do these listening sessions in a group setting? Because truly, I could talk to Urban League one-on-one, but if I have Urban League, Second Chance, My Brother's Keeper, if I have them all in a room together, now I really am getting better discussions. And then once we started to ramp up and get these candidates in the candidate pool, do they have computers at home? Do they have accessibility? Can they get to these training sessions? Training providers, are you willing to put that training online and know that they're still doing their work and turning it in? All of those things were really difficult, and we made it through, though, and it actually ended up bringing accessibility even more so to candidate pool.
Okay, so you overcame so many different challenges in the past 5 years, and now Apprenti PGH is pretty well established. But also, what makes Pittsburgh in particular a unique place for these kinds of apprenticeship opportunities?
That's a great question because you have to have the right recipe, right? You have to have the right players involved. We have an incredible tech ecosystem that needs talent and has a lot of open roles. At the time we did this, overwhelming how many open roles they had, and they were entry level. So we had the employer need. We had the candidate pool. So we are a place where so much transition has happened. The Mon Valley, where we held the first listing session, is desecrated from having this steel industry lead. But yet they have so many folks that are smart and ambitious and want to move out and want to move up. So we had this untapped talent that was overwhelming. And then we had training providers. We already had Tech Elevator here. Perscolas came soon after. We had Academy Pittsburgh out of Work Hard. So we had the right pieces in place to make this work if we could put the pieces together. The other thing is we have apprenticeships here. They're different. They're in industry, in the manufacturing, but they exist. So we were going to take that model and put it towards a community that needed it.
Good. And I know you said in the beginning there was this overwhelming number of open roles and entry-level roles, but that has shifted to now we have an overwhelming number of candidates that have been applying to these entry-level roles. So no one is really taking this thought of apprenticeship under consideration right now because they're like, hey, we have an influx of applications from people who went to CMU and they still can't find a job. So what is some things that you will share with employers that may be listening to this podcast of, hey, why should I still focus on apprentice, or why should I still hire an apprentice versus just hiring Jane Doe who applied and I have 600 applications in my breakdown?
Right? Great point. It's a real issue, right? One thing is you're going to get people with totally different perspectives. The folks coming out of some of those 4-year programs are of a very similar line of thought, right? You're going to get very different perspectives. You're going to get people who really can work so well with teams. They have faced issues and had to problem solve in ways that the others have not. And in addition to that, they're going to get them at a much cheaper price. I hate to constantly go to the price tag, but they're going to get salary jumps. It's going to be fair, but they're not paying the salary that you are going to have to pay for some of those other graduates.
Right. And what I found out is, believe it or not, a lot of those candidates that actually are applying and have their application put in are also applying for Apprentice, right? So although we have our candidate pool has candidates that may not have went to a 4-year college, but it's like overwhelming to see how many candidates went to school, may have a little bit of background, but still can't find the job, right? But they're an apprentice and they're not just learning the tech skills, but also the soft skills that is needed to fully be successful in the workforce.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we can also customize the curriculum. You can't customize Pitt's curriculum. You can customize the curriculum that we're using.
I really love the point you've made about being able to customize the curriculum. When you have someone that's just coming, again, directly out of a 4-year college, again, you don't know really what they're learning. You know, they know the basics, but being able to customize this curriculum will allow them to know exactly what they need to be successful at the role they're going to have in your organization, right? That said, to date, we have 47 apprentices hired. 60% of that 40% are women, which is really great because there was a narrative that there wasn't a lot of women in tech. So we
18%.
18%.
You can do those numbers. You say your numbers, I'll say what we started with.
It's amazing. Another set of numbers is we had 50% of our candidates that were placed were African American.
We started with 8%. So my numbers came from who were software engineers in the region. 8% were African American. 18% were women. 2% were Latinx before we started the program.
Talk about impact, right? Because Latinx, we are now at 12%. 12% are Asian, right? So we're really shifting the culture. We're really shifting that narrative that there is not a lot of diversity in tech, which is really great. So As you're working with now a lot of our member at the Pittsburgh Technology Council, a lot of our member companies, what are some things that you are seeing is starting to change in the mindset of employers?
Yeah. There has been, very slow, but it is steady, so we'll take it, a shift in their openness to non-traditional pathways, entry-level candidates, being able to upskill the workers that they have. So they see that really 90% of a job can be taught. Yay. So if we get the right person in here, they're going to show up every day. They're going to be eager to learn. They are good at this base skills that we need them to have. We're going to teach them. And there is true value there. And it's not just one. It might be a team of that. We could take multiple. So really opening their minds as employers and really taking away a lot of the risk associated with it. That's where a lot of that comes from, right? They're scared. How much money are they going to lose if this fails? So taking away that risk as well and just making them feel more comfortable and confident that this is an okay pathway to take.
So I have to rewind because you brought up upskilling. And I know that is another piece of Apprentice. So can you tell us a little bit more about upskilling?
So I will say I've been very proud to watch Apprenti evolve here at the Tech Council since we started it. Our business model has slightly adjusted and changed as we saw what could make us more successful and independent on our own of some of those funding sources, right? Upskilling is a piece of that, and it's exciting. We have companies who, especially with the integration of AI and how it's affecting industry, they have to teach their current employees who know their business, who are successful, who are great team members, but they need to upskill them to get them up closer to that sort of middle management level. Apprenti can do that.
Yeah.
We can put them through training. It can be a similar model. So Apprenti has evolved to not just be for those entry-level candidates, but how can we upskill your current workforce? Same thing when we talk about a Sheets. When we talk to a bank, they have customer-facing employees who are also really good at tech. We can take that person who is at the register or who is a teller at the bank, and we can upskill them into a project manager, into IT, into software engineering through Apprenti, and now they are really investing in their own company. What that does for culture is huge.
Yes.
So that's what we're
And when you brought up AI, it brought me back again to customizing the training, right? So a lot of employers now, they want to hire a software developer,
Yeah.
but they're like, can we tap on some AI training?
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of hiring an apprentice through this model. Because again, no shade on four-year colleges, right? I think we all attended four-year university. But again, you can't say, and can we add AI training and still have them come out around the same time? You can add it, but just know it's going to be another semester before they can come to work.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And universities are incredible, but they're not pumping out as much of the workforce as we need in other ways.
And back in our second episode, when we interviewed Apprenti Pittsburgh, one of the things that I realized in that talk is one thing you don't learn in college is that adaptability. You have so many people that are like in the customer service industry who already have that management experience. It's going to be a lot easier for them to adapt to a management experience.
Absolutely right.
But they just need the industry knowledge.
The training.
Not just in the sense of adaptability. I feel like the Apprenti PGH experience is just very unique. So I'm sure that you've got a lot of interesting experiences and stories from it. Do you have a story in particular that's your favorite?
Yes. It's hard to say that it's my favorite because we've had so many great stories. And across the ages of the candidates, across the specific situations of the candidates. But we had one apprentice who was hired. And this was post-COVID, so now we had to be in person at the training provider. And he had no form of transportation. He also was not near public transit because we would originally just get him a bus pass. So instead, we got him an Uber pass. And it ended up being that the same Uber driver picked him up for every single instant that he had to come in for training. So this went out over 14 weeks, the training 14 weeks, and the same Uber driver's picking him up. By the time that training was done, that Uber driver had also applied and is an apprentice. And so those stories, you can't make those up. It is such a great, and he was with them throughout the process, right? So it wasn't just a one-time get their attention. He saw the transformation. So you can't, that just speaks to the quality of the experience.
Oh, it's so cool. Just more of that word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yes. We actually interviewed an apprentice in our last episode, and just hearing the story about where they were and just the gratitude. And again, that grit that they are bringing into the workforce now is just amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you, Marie, for just agreeing to interview with us and talk about Apprenti. This has been really good, really insightful. But before we go, I would just love to ask, what is something you would like to share with the employers that may be watching this podcast?
The first thing is we have 120 candidates waiting to be placed, and they are exceptional. They have passed the assessment. They are ready to go. The second thing is, what's holding you back? Right? What is holding you back from doing this? Tell us. Like I've mentioned, Apprenti has evolved. And now what's really exciting is that we heard from some employers that they were not able to be the employer of record. Okay, we found a solution. Now one of the models is Apprenti National can be the employer of record while they're going through the program. Solution. We have this amazing talent. Come to us with things that you're concerned about. Take a chance. Take one apprentice. I will assure you, you will take more.
Yes, yes. And just so you would know, those of you who are watching that may be interested in learning a little bit more about Apprenti, we now host a monthly information session the third Wednesday of every month. So if you're interested in being a part of information session, please reach out to me. My email address is lbroughton@pghtech.org.
All right. Thank you so much again for hanging with us. Thank you. That's a story I could tell every day.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear. Bye.